Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast that is about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as I talk about other video games and other video game companies as well. So I'm spicing it up a little bit there in the intro. Of course, it has been a little bit longer since the last episode, or sorry, a little bit less long, actually, since the last episode as it normally would have been, because normally it's, a Tuesday it's like 14 days, but the last episode ended up going out on, I think, Friday, so it's actually like 11 days, so that's a little irregular, but I'm sure nobody really cares that much, so it's not really a huge deal. This, of course, is episode 29, so that means not a whole lot, honestly. 29 is not really all that significant a number. I would say 30 is a decent number for a few reasons. Well, no, not really for a few reasons. For one reason, that of course being that it's a nice, an even 10, right? So there's, so not really for a few reasons. For one reason, but anyways, I'm just babbling at this point. But I guess to be fair, that is kind of what I do. That's kind of the whole point of this podcast. If there are any fans of this podcast out here, that's kind of why you're here, I think, for the most part. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about today, actually. There's some things that I didn't get to last week, which is a little strange. Normally, I don't like to carry things over like that. But yeah, I actually didn't talk at all last week about games that I played, other than, mentioning maybe offhandedly here and there. But I did not delve into the things I've been playing so much last episode. And to be honest, last episode I actually did have quite a bit to talk about, and it just kind of carried over. In this week, in this 2-week interval, I also have a lot to talk about. So this is going to be probably like a triply long, I would say. Not Tripoli like the city in Tunisia, or in Libya. Now I look like an idiot. Not that Tripoli, but Tripoli 3 times as long probably as most what I've been playing segments. And it's also going to be longer because I also bought a bunch of video games, and I know that's not something I normally talk about because I don't buy a ton of video games. I mean, I guess I do actually buy a ton of video games. Compared to most people, I buy a ton of video games, but compared to other collectors and stuff, I don't think I buy that much, or at the very least, it's spaced out pretty well, I don't go hunting for stuff all that often, to be fair. But I do actually have some stuff to talk about on that front as well, and I think I actually kind of want to maybe talk about that first, some of the stuff I bought. So, I complain about this all the time. I complain about a lot of things all the time. But the thing I'm going to complain about right now is that I don't have a GameStop where I live anymore. We used to. It closed over a year ago at this point. It's been a little over a year, like a year and 2 months probably, since that GameStop closed. I've gone through a few phases. When I was quite young, I thought GameStop was great because, of course, they had the selection, right, that you would hope for at a large game store. And there was another place not far, like an hour away or so, that also had an even bigger selection. But that place I always hated from the beginning because it was way overpriced, and it's only gotten worse. I know just not that long ago, I was there at this other game store like an hour away. Like I said, it has a huge selection. I mean, it's probably one of the bigger selections I've ever seen at a game store. It's pretty huge. And not the other day, this is like months ago, but last time I was there, they had a copy of Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii. I almost said Wii U, but on the Wii, it was like $70. Like a complete copy. It wasn't new. I checked. It wasn't like a weird printing, or there was nothing special about this game at all. And I'm not entirely sure why it would be so expensive. That's the one that sticks out to me. When I think about that game store, that's kind of the biggest thing that sticks out to me. I'm like, why particularly was Smash Brawl so expensive? Because that's like a $20 game. Maybe if you got crazy good conditions, like $25 maybe. I cannot see a situation in which that game could ever be $70. That's crazy. I don't know if they just looked up Smash Brothers and got results for Melee or something. I don't know what they were thinking. They weren't thinking. That's probably what happened. They probably weren't. I don't even think Melee is worth $70, right? Melee is 50 or 60, I think. So I don't know. Anyways, I'm actually gonna check that. I'm gonna check on price charting. What is Melee? Because if Melee is not that bad, maybe I'll buy. Well, we're getting off topic here, but maybe I'll buy Melee at some point. Oh, yeah, Melee is only $50. That's not bad. Anyways, my point is, GameStop, I always used to like the selection, but GameStop over the years got a lot worse with selection, particularly. They stopped carrying old stuff. So when the Switch came out, obviously all the Wii U stuff was still around, but the Wii stuff and the DS stuff was all still around too. And PS3 and 360, and of course over the years that stuff faded from existence. And I came to hate GameStop at one point because it was basically all new stuff, and there were lots of things at GameStop that weren't games. Right? There's so much merchandise and just random junk that I was not really interested in for the most part. And then at some point, a few years ago, I kind of came back. I was like, you know what? This actually isn't that bad. At least they've got a decent selection in like pretty much market value prices, right? I wouldn't say you're getting like scammed when buying stuff at GameStop for the most part, right? There was some instances for sure. I've seen some pretty bad deals, but I've also seen some decent deals as well, right? Like they're never going to be way undervalued like with some stores, but they're never going to be way overvalued either like with some other stores. So it's not that bad, right? You can trust that if you see a price on a game at GameStop, it's going to be pretty close to the market value on like price charting or something, right? And it's probably going to end up working out better for you than buying something online if you're one of those people. So I kind of came back around to GameStop, and then when they did the whole retro GameStop thing, that was cool too. There's a few retro GameStops that are like a couple hours from me that we go to every now and then. So so that was nice. And then of course my GameStop closed, so I was kind of bad about that. But anyways, so we did go to a couple of those retro GameStops. We took 2 separate trips, not for those reasons, but for other reasons. And while we were there, 2 different times in the last, I guess, month at this point, I've been to GameStops and also Best Buy one time. And while at those places, I bought some things. So when we went, this was a few weeks ago now, probably 3 weeks ago or so. I went and there honestly wasn't a ton. We only went to the one GameStop. There wasn't a ton that I found there, to be honest, that I was really looking at. I did buy Bloodstained Ritual of the Night on PS4. So I believe Bloodstained is also on like Switch and stuff, but I opted for the PS4 version mostly because that was the one that was there. And Bloodstained seems like the kind of game that like I don't mind. There's some games that I don't mind what console they're on. And I have no real qualms with modern PlayStation. Well, I wouldn't say no qualms, but I don't have any substantial qualms with modern PlayStation. I wouldn't buy this game on Xbox, but on PlayStation, that's fine. I'm not even sure if this is on Switch, to be honest with you. It might be. Or it is, but I don't know if it's physical on Switch. So it doesn't matter either way. It was pretty cheap. I think it was like $6 or something. And I was pretty sure that was a little bit undervalued. I think, let's see, Bloodstained. When I saw it, I was like, that's got to be more expensive than that. And that was most of the reason why I bought it, because it was undervalued. And also, I don't think you tend to see physicals for these kinds of indie games. Yeah, on Switch, it's 20. PS4, it's like 14 right now. So that actually is a pretty solid deal. So anyway, so I got a good deal on that. So that's most of the reason why I bought it. It is a complete copy. It's pretty clean. Disc is fine. It's cool. So I'm not like a Metroidvania fan per se. I'm actually just now getting into Metroidvanias. I played a few Metroid games. I played Zero Mission, Fusion, and then Super Metroid all earlier this year, back in like February to March, April area. Actually, I guess I can check actually because I have my fancy dancy little book here that tells me all the games I've beaten in the last 2 years. Let's see, so I beat Metroid Zero Mission on February 18th, I beat Fusion on the 20th, and then I beat Super Metroid on March 7th. So there you go, so February and March. But yeah, so after playing those games, I am hoping to expand my Metroidvania horizons, because historically I've not really been a Metroidvania fan. I tried Metroid a bunch of times and didn't like it, and after playing these last few, I'm finally coming around to the genre. But I do want to play all the Metroid games before I get to other Metroidvanias, and so that's kind of why I haven't gotten around to like Hollow Knight or Blasphemous or Bloodstained or Castlevania or any of that stuff. So my plan here is to play Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS, not the Game Boy version because that's stupid, but the 3DS version. But I have to actually find it somewhere. I can't find it anywhere. It's like, for some reason, super hard to find. I guess because it didn't sell well because it came out in 2017. And And then the other thing is Metroid Dread, which I really should be able to find. I don't know why Dread has been so hard to find, but I can't find either of those two games here anytime in the last... I've probably been looking for like 6 months. I can't find them. So as soon as I find those two games, it might even be like a Christmas thing. We'll see what happens. So I'm hoping to play those games probably next year at this point. It's looking a little late in the year. To get to too much more stuff, but we'll see. So as soon as I play those two games, I would be willing to go try out some other Metroidvanias and stuff and see what I think of that kind of stuff. And I definitely want to try some Castlevania games as well. Bloodstained, those games are pretty similar to Castlevania from all I've heard. Like Symphony of the Night era, that kind of, Dawn of Sorrows, those kinds of Castlevania games. So I'm definitely excited about that. I did buy one other game at that GameStop. I bought Pokken Tournament on the Wii U. So of course there was Pokken Tournament DX on the Switch, which is a much better version as far as I know. But this is a decent copy. There's a few little nicks on the case, but it was only like, I think it was $5. It is missing the manual, and it also doesn't have the amiibo card that originally came with the game, so I didn't really like a steal on this or anything. But I'm really trying to expand my Wii U collection, because I am pretty worried that Wii U games are going to suddenly like shoot up in price here in the next few years. You could already see some of them starting to just a little bit, but yeah, my fear with Wii U, of course, this is always a thing, right? A console's been out, and it gets to that sweet spot, and then the prices start soaring, right? Specifically Nintendo consoles. So you saw it with 64, you saw it with GameCube a few years ago, and so everyone's like, oh, well, Wii's next, right? I don't think the Wii is next, because I think a lot of the reason why these console prices, or game prices on consoles soar, is because people have the desire to go back to them, because they're Nintendo games. Everybody's nostalgic about Nintendo games. With the Wii, though, Nintendo was so hot and so accessible at that time that I don't think as many people are going to be looking to go back to a lot of those Wii games quite in the same fashion. Or if they can, the games will just be more accessible just because they were on the Wii. And it is true that the attach rate on Wii was pretty poor, so the Wii games didn't really sell that much better than the GameCube games, most of them. But even still, I still think it'll end up being better off, or being better on the Wii, because the games were still, I think, a bit more accessible, and a lot more people played them back then and didn't miss out on them, because they're more recent, but also because Nintendo was doing a lot better at that time. So I don't think the Wii is going to see quite the surge that the GameCube did. It might see a little bit. There's already a few games that are going up a little bit. Last I knew, Super Paper Mario was getting a little bit expensive. It was getting up in like the $30 range. It used to be like 10 or 15. So, there's some things that are getting up there, but it's nothing like the GameCube. But my thought is that the Wii U is going to be the next thing to get this big price increase, and not the Wii. They're going to jump the Wii completely. Because the Wii U, there were a lot of good games on the Wii U, and I think collectors are going to want the Wii U versions rather than the Switch versions, or like both, obviously, right? So we'll see. I mean, the big counter-argument against the Wii U theory is that a lot of the games did come to Switch, so there might not be as much desire to play them on the Wii U. But then, of course, there's the idea that the Wii U didn't sell very well, so of course, even though the attachment rate was quite high on Wii U games, the games really, most of them didn't sell all that well. The only games that I would say sold particularly well on the Wii U, Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon 1, are the only two games that, like, by Switch standards would have sold decently, right? Because I think Mario Kart 8 was like 10, 12 million, and Splatoon 1 was like 8 million, maybe. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I think that's about right. And those are decent selling games, even by other console standards, even with the Wii U selling so bad. So there definitely was a good attachment rate, but it can only take you so far when you've got 14.5 million people, or 13.5 million people with the console. So we'll see. But yeah, so I'm trying to buy up a lot of Wii U games, particularly Wii U games with Switch versions. So I have like 3D World, I have Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, I have Pokken Tournament now, I have Hyrule Warriors, a lot of these things. I've recently bought Star Fox Guard, Mario Maker, a lot of these things that I didn't have, because I really didn't have hardly any Wii U games prior to this, so definitely working on the Wii U collection. And also, the other thing with the Wii U for me is that the Wii U seems pretty accessible as far as trying to get like a good run of the first-party games. Maybe not all of them, but most of them, because really, there's not a ton that's like particularly expensive on the Wii U, first-party-wise. The only thing I can think is like Devil's Third, right, is pretty expensive, but most other things are fairly accessible. And there's also a lot fewer first-party games than on basically every other console. There might be more than on the 64, but I'm not entirely sure on that even. It's quite a small library, so it seems like a much more reasonable ask to get a bunch of Wii U games. While we were at that GameStop, I also took advantage of the GameStop Amiibo sale. So amiibos are kind of a weird thing. You know, I was talking a lot about the amiibos last show about how they were going up in price and all this, and they were too expensive and all this stuff. Well, I guess GameStop thought so too, or better yet, the people that buy games at GameStop thought so, because nobody was buying the GameStop amiibos. And so GameStop did a big sale. This was big news a couple weeks ago here, like a month ago actually at this point. It was a while ago. But this was big news that GameStop was doing a big amiibo sale. They were clearing out inventory. All of the old amiibos that got reprinted and stuff in the last couple of years, like we're talking the original Smash Wii U ones, like, 2014, 2015, 2016, all of those ones were getting clearanced out for like $6, and then all of the Switch 2 ones were going to 15. Now, I didn't buy any of the Switch 2 ones, because 15 is still a bit high for me for an amiibo. Like, 15 is what I would expect to be paying at, like, regular price when they came out, right? Like 20 max, right? The 30 and 40 is pretty ridiculous. So 15, I was like, well, that just sounds like what they should be to begin with. That does not sound like a sale price. Now, $6, that's a pretty good deal. I'll take them for $6. I'm not worried about keeping my amiibo in box for the most part. I took them all out of the box. Before this, I had quite a few amiibo, not like a ton, but I had most of the Animal Crossing figures. Of course, there's also the Animal Crossing amiibo cards. I have quite a few of those as well, but I'm not worried about getting the whole set of those. Like, who cares, right? But as far as the actual amiibo figures, before I took advantage of this sale, I did have like most of the Animal Crossing ones, and I had a few odd Mario ones and a few Smash ones. So like I had the Mario 30th anniversary, 30th? Yeah, 25th, I think, anniversary. I had I had regular Mario, I had the Luigi Smash Brothers, I had Wii Fit Trainer, Pichu, Banjo-Kazooie, I had the Mario, or Cat Mario and Cat Peach one. So I had like a few random things like that, right? Now I have like doubled my amiibo count. I'm up to like 30. And so I have quite a few more of the Smash Brothers ones now. At some point, if you want, maybe I can make a whole video talking about my amiibo collection. There's not a whole lot to say. Maybe I should get some more before I do that, but I think it would be an interesting little thing to talk about for sure. But anyways, so I have an amiibo collection now. I would say before I just had a few. I would say I definitely actually do have a collection of amiibo now, but it's not like a huge one. I'm definitely missing a lot of amiibo, and I'm not necessarily interested in getting all of the amiibo just because there's some that are so expensive. Like the cereal box is pretty expensive. Obviously, QB from Box Boy is outrageously expensive. I think there's a couple Splatoon ones that are pretty expensive as well. So some of these are pretty hard to come by for sure. But it is what it is. So I'm not too concerned about most of those. So I guess I'll talk about the other GameStop trip real quick, so we don't waste too much time here. The other GameStop trip, this one was like a week ago, maybe more than a week ago. Maybe like a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. I went to another GameStop, and there I found Pac-Man World 2 Repack. So the game, it's a Switch 2 game, and it's only $30. So that's a pretty significant reason as to why I bought it. But yeah, it was only $30, Pac-Man World 2 Repack. I have not played Pac-Man World 1 Repack. I'm not sure if I'm gonna play World 2 Repack before I play World 1 Repack. I expected Pac-Man World Repack 1 to come over to the Switch 2, but it has not, and I'm kind of thinking at this point it might not at all, which is fine. I mean, obviously the Switch 1 version is fine. I don't see any reason for them to put it out on Switch 2 necessarily, other than just the fact that the second one's on there. And I would be totally down to play the game on Switch 1 anyway, so I'm not too concerned. It is what it is. I'll probably just end up buying the game on Switch 1 at some point. Again, it's going to be like maybe a Christmas thing or something. We'll see. So I might end up playing Pac-Man World 1 and 2 Repack next year. I'm going to say probably not this year. It's probably going to be like a next year thing. But I did buy that because it was $30, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'll add another Switch 2 game to my collection, because I definitely want to buy a lot of Switch 2 games. And of course, if they're cheap, then I'll definitely buy them, right? It's like the number one reason to buy them. I did also buy at that GameStop. I bought Suikoden. This is the Suikoden. What's the full title of it? Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars. So, what a title that is. This, of course, is the original, I think it's, yeah, the original two Suikoden games by Konami, and basically a, like, HD 2D remaster. Um, it's kind of like a Square Enix HD 2D style, but of course it can't use that same name. But yeah, it's basically HD 2D remakes of that game, which is cool. It's definitely, it was something that I was looking for. Kind of. This is the Switch 1 version, I should say. But I did a little bit of research. I don't think the Switch 1 version versus the Switch 2 version makes a whole lot of difference on Suikoden. It seems like both versions look about the same, and the Switch 2 version might run a little bit better, but it's a turn-based RPG. Like, it is what it is. I'm not too bothered. And the Switch 2 version, I can't seem to find anywhere. I do think it exists physically, but only kind of. So I'm not too concerned about that. It is what it is. So I'm happy to have the Switch 1 version. That's fine. Maybe in 10 years I'll be mad that I bought the Switch 1 version, and I'll have to go buy the Switch 2 version. If that's what happens, that's what happens, whatever. But it is what it is. I'm just going to deal with it. So I had the Switch 1 version. And then also that same day, right after that GameStop, we did stop by Best Buy, because I've been looking for Pokemon Legends Arceus, and they had it there. So I bought Pokemon Legends Arceus for full price. I didn't get any discount on it because I've been looking for it at GameStop for like a year, and no GameStop in the entire universe seems to have Pokemon Legends Arceus pre-owned. So finally, I just gave in and I bought the game for full price, even though it's 4 years old. And so I'm gonna play Pokemon Legends Arceus at some point, probably fairly soon. I'll probably start that. I don't know, maybe this month. We'll see. But yeah, my plan is to play that not for like the end of the year. I'll probably carry it over to next year. I mean, if I like it, if I hate it, then I probably will just stop playing it. I imagine it'll at least be somewhat entertaining. So yeah, my plan is to play that game, because I'm not like a Pokemon fan, right? The only other Pokemon game I have is Pokemon Shield. I played probably 3 or 4 hours of it, and it was fine. I didn't have any problems with it, per se. It was somewhat entertaining. It was cool. It was a fun time for those couple hours, and then kind of got away from it. But this was a few years ago as well, back when I did not play nearly as many video games. So, I think if I picked it up now, I would probably go through the whole game, to be honest. And I may do that at some point, but the older Pokemon games are a little bit more appealing to me as somebody who's not played the series. So I'm planning at some point to try to play some of the older Pokemon games. If they ever do decide to put out like some of the first couple generations remade, on Switch 2, I'll happily jump on board with those. If they ever put them on Switch Online, which I don't think they will, but if they ever do, if the Pokemon Company ever lets them do that, I'll jump on board there. Like, whatever. I mean, at this point, I would be down for a lot of those things. You know what actually would be awesome? And this seems like the kind of thing that I'm sure won't happen, but it would be kind of cool. What if the Pokemon Company put out a Pokemon Mini to celebrate the Pokemon 30th anniversary next year? They put out the Pokemon Mini again with it like preloaded with Red and Blue or something, or maybe some of the original Pokemon Mini games as well. That'd be kind of cool. I would not play it on there because God, that thing's tiny. But that'd be kind of cool. It'd be a nice little callback to some of for the hardcore Pokemon people and Nintendo people. And maybe also for the 30th anniversary, they could finally put out the darn games again. That'd be cool. I doubt it, though. I doubt that's going to happen, but it might. We'll see. But anyways, so yeah, I'm at some point going to jump on board to the main Pokemon series, but the Legends series seemed a little bit more appealing to me at the moment, because it is a different thing. It seems like a cool concept with the whole open world thing. Open worlds don't usually suck me in, but the open world for a Pokemon game, just the fact that it's different, I think, seems kind of intriguing. And on top of that, I've heard some pretty decent things about Legends Arceus. And Legends EA is coming out, so if I love the game, and I can move right on to Legends EA sometime next year, right? So there's a lot of good reasons as to why I chose to buy Legends Arceus. So we'll see. I'll play that at some point. Yeah, I'll probably get around to that fairly soon. So we'll see. But again, it's not going to be something I'm going to rush through. It's going to be a slow-paced thing anyway. And I think that is all that I have bought in the last month or so. Oh, you know what? It's not. It's not all I've bought. I just remembered. I will try to be quick here. So, Whatnot. Has anybody ever heard of Whatnot? Um, Whatnot is an interesting little app. I heard about it from my dad. He has a business. He sells rock-related things at events and stuff. Rocks and crystals and stuff, and it's a whole thing. We don't need to get into that. But anyways, he buys some of his inventory off of Whatnot. And when I heard about Whatnot, I was like, because I had heard about Whatnot years ago, and I was like, I should actually check that out. I wonder if there's anything cool video game wise. So I downloaded Whatnot. I got the referral through his link, and we both got $20. It's like a random chance. You can get anywhere from like 10 to 200 or something. We got 20. And I spent my $20 on a few different video game things. So I'll just talk about the stuff that has showed up so far. I had 3 Atari games show up, those being Video Pinball, which I do have already. I already have Video Pinball, but the version of Video Pinball I have is the one with just the blank black label and the text. This is the one with the art, which isn't like a huge deal. I'm not necessarily concerned about getting both versions. But the reason I bought this is because it was $2 for all 3 games, and the other 2 games I didn't have, and those are Video Checkers and Video Chess, respectively. So those 2 games are new for me, and Video Pinball isn't a complete waste because I don't have that particular version of Video Pinball, so that's alright. So I got those 3 games for $2. I figured that was a decent deal. I mean, Atari 2600 games are not, like, hugely expensive, but I also have a lot of them. I have like 88 or something, so it's kind of rare that I even find a lot of stuff that I don't have for cheap, so I figured this was a decent opportunity. So I bought those 2 games, and I also bought the Pathless on Switch, which I did not really mean to buy. I actually, accidentally auctioned or bidded on an auction for this game. I really did not mean to buy this. It is currently still a sealed copy of the Pathless on Switch, published by by Annapurna Interactive, developed by Giant Squid. This is actually the PAL version. It has the PEGI rating. So this game was a digital-only game, and it got picked up by, I believe, Limited Run and IM 8-Bit both. So I have the IM 8-Bit version, which came out in Europe, but I believe there's also the Limited Run version in North America. So it's a little confusing. I have the PAL version. It doesn't matter. If I was to open it, I could play it still, because the Switch is region-free. But I'm not sure that I will open it. I didn't really mean to buy it, and I don't have a ton of desire to play this game. And I might just leave it sealed, and maybe at some point buy it digitally to play. It doesn't seem like the worst idea to have something from IM 8-Bit sealed like that. I know those kind of things can be a little collectible. It's not really worth much money. It's like $20, $25 sealed. But it's one of those things that could potentially go up, or at the very least, could be kind of cool to have a sealed copy of, even if it's not particularly valuable. So I might hold on to it. We'll see. Well, I'm going to hold on to it. Whether I open it or not, we'll see. But yes, I believe that now is all the stuff that I've bought and received in the last 2 weeks. I don't buy a lot of stuff online, but this stuff was free because I had Whatnot credit, so that's why I bought it. I don't plan to buy any more stuff on Whatnot unless there's like a crazy deal on there, but I don't imagine there will be. And the only thing I'm doing on Whatnot now is entering free giveaways and stuff. I'm doing a lot of, I'll be playing a game, and I've just got Whatnot on the side every 5 minutes, entering a free giveaway. I've won quite a bunch of stuff on there now at this point. I've got a couple of video games coming in the next couple of weeks, so we'll talk about those next time, and they'll have been totally free, which is pretty cool. So, anyways, I think that's probably enough yapping about video games I've bought. Let's talk about video games I've played, because that's, I think, maybe more why you're here. I hope anyways, because I think that's the more interesting conversation. Not that the stuff I've bought is disinteresting, but I think, this is potentially a little bit more interesting. So I have a few things to talk about. We'll start first with the stuff that I meant to talk about last week, and then we'll move into the stuff, or not last week, last 2 weeks, and then we'll move into the stuff that I've played in the last 2 weeks. So we'll talk about stuff that I played 3 to 4 weeks ago, and then, in the last 2 weeks. So, the main thing, here's kind of the biggest thing, I would say, the most significant thing for the show, probably, the thing that I did in the last, I guess at this point it's been nearly a month of having played video games and not talked about them on the podcast. was I 100%ed Donkey Kong Bonanza. I did this on September 17th, and that was a long time ago, wasn't it? That's actually a lot. Wow. So, September 17th, I 100%ed Donkey Kong Bonanza. And to be honest, I kind of wish I would have talked about this last show, because it's one of those things where once you get a little bit too far away from some of these things, you don't necessarily remember all of the stories that you were going to tell about them. In total, the game took me 52 hours, not 25 minutes, 52 hours and a quarter, so like 15 minutes. Roughly, obviously, this is just based on me with the stopwatch. So a little over 52 hours I spent on this to 100% it. Just to beat the game, it took me 34 hours and 45 minutes, and so, we added on an extra 17.75, or 17.5, I think, so... Anyways, we added on quite a bit more, but we basically half again the amount of time to finish up with 100%ing. So, in total, the post-game stuff for me was about a third of my total runtime. And of course, I did not, while I played the game, collect every single banana before I beat the game. I went back at the end and got some stuff. So, when I initially played through the game, I got most fossils and most bananas in the areas. In each area, and then later on, after I beat the game, I went back and cleaned up. So some areas needed a little bit more cleanup than others. The groove layer, I had to do a lot of stuff still. I don't remember all of them specifically, but there were some layers that I'd go to and I'd be done in like 15, 20 minutes. And there were others that I spent multiple hours finishing up 100%ing on, either because they were larger or because I did less while I was there. Either way, there were lots of things. And then, of course, after I collected all of the bananas and all of the fossils, I still had to go and spend the fossils. I did not realize while I was gathering fossils that I was actually going to have to spend the fossils in order to get an extra banana in the groove layer. So PSA, if you're trying to 100% Bonanza, spend the fossils at each shop while you collect them, so you don't have to go back at the end of the game and go to each area and spend all your fossils, because that's kind of annoying. So there's that. I also had to do all 5 Bonanza rehearsals. So if you don't know, or is it 5? I think it's 5. Yeah, I think there's 5 Bonanza rehearsals. So there's the 4 for each of the 4 Bonanza abilities. The Kong Bonanza, should I spoil stuff? I don't know. There's a few different Bonanza abilities. Each of them have their own rehearsal. I'm not going to spoil stuff. So, the first Bonanza ability, for those who have played the game, you'll know which one I'm talking about. I don't really remember the rehearsal for the first one all that well. I think it was mostly combat-focused. Basically, we were defeating a lot of those guys that were, like, circle-shaped, that were made out of concrete. The second Bonanza power-up, it depends on what order you did them in. If you did 1, then you had to do a lot of running on platforms, and so it was basically like a timed challenge. The other one was all about gliding, and you had to go through different wind gusts and stuff. And then there were the last 2 Bonanzas. There's the one where you had to do... The one that I actually struggle a little bit with... I don't know, I feel like I'm spoiling stuff, so I'm going to stop. But the Bonanza rehearsals, I guess my point is, the Bonanza rehearsals were... interesting little after-the-game challenges, post-game challenges, but I don't think the Bonanza rehearsals were particularly challenging. There was only one that I had any real struggle with, and that was the second to last... It was a Snake Bonanza. I don't know if that's spoiling anything. It's the Snake Bonanza. I struggled a little bit with one particular section. You might know what I'm talking about if you've done the Bonanza rehearsals yourself. There was one little section that I found a little tricky. Not that I didn't know what I was doing, not that I was struggling with combat, but it was just executing the puzzle, which I found difficult, which was a little annoying, to be honest. But most of the time, the Bonanza rehearsals and stuff were not particularly challenging. There was also a final challenge at the end. You had to use all of the Bonanzas for one of the challenges, and that was pretty easy as well. So, just in general, the game was very easy to beat into 100% as well. It was a little time-consuming to 100%. And that's totally fine. I'm cool with that. It was a great game. I loved my time with it. I'm very happy about Bonanza. I did initially say after I beat it that it's my second favorite game of all time. I think I'm going to backpedal a little bit and say that it might be third. I'm going to go with third right now. We'll see. Maybe at some point it'll fall down a little further, but for right now, I would say it's probably my third favorite, because I do actually think Sunshine is a little bit more fun most of the time than particularly Pachinko Machine looking at you. But I think Sunshine is a little bit more fun most of the time, but Bonanza, incredible game. It's definitely gonna be my game of the year. So spoiler alert for my my list that I'm gonna do at the end of the year. Just so you know, I am gonna do an end of the year list again this year. For those who don't know, last year I put it out on Christmas Day. It was my all of the games that I played for the first time in 2024, all ranked. I think there ended up being like 43 or so. This year I'm only at like 34 or so, maybe 33. I'm not doing quite as well this year. I have played some longer stuff, though, to be fair. And I've been a lot busier this year. I think there's been a lot more that's happened, so I'm not upset about it or anything. And I've definitely played a lot of good games, and I think overall this is potentially a better year this year for me in video games than it was last year. Because I played a lot of really solid stuff. I mean, Astro's Playroom, all 3 Marvel Spider-Man games, Echoes of Wisdom, um, and this was counting a couple of these things I technically beat last year, but they're anything that I beat after Christmas Day, because that is the day that my end of the year ranking came out. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I beat in this last in this year. That a lot of things that are top 10 contenders. Like, I'm looking at my list and I could probably think of 15 or 20 top 10 contenders. So it's going to be a pretty contentious list, that's for sure. So I'm definitely going to struggle to put together that list, but it's going to be fun in the end. It's going to be a really good list. It's probably going to be a stronger list than last year as well. So we'll see. I hope you're all excited for that. But yeah, I'm going to put out the list a little bit earlier this year. I'm not going to put it out on Christmas Day. I think I'm going to pick like a Wednesday or something, or a Friday before Christmas. I was going to do it right after Christmas, and then I found out that we might be going somewhere to see some family during that time, and so it might end up making more sense for me. I don't know. We'll see. This isn't going to be set in stone yet, because we still have like 2 months, like 2.5 months even, until this is a problem. So we'll see. But the end of the year ranking will happen in December. As to what exact date that'll be, that's yet to be determined. But don't worry too much about that. It'll definitely happen. But my point is there's some things right now towards the end of the year here that I'm already thinking like, all right, this is not going to make it in the ranking. This is going to be too late. It's going to be a next year thing. You know, there's a lot of things like that. But Donkey Kong Bonanza is definitely going to win that ranking, and it's a thing that I'm very happy I was able to beat before the end of the year. So I beat it back in August, but then to have 100%ed it, that's great. So Bonanza, absolutely phenomenal game. I'm sure I will continue to talk about it. I might just continue every week to try to come up with a couple of things before the show to say about it, because yeah, it's a really good game. It's honestly one of my favorite games of all time. It's incredible. And I'm not even too upset about there not being a 3D Mario game anymore, because Bonanza was just such a solid experience that I'm okay with it being the replacement 3D Mario game. And now I do still hope there's a 3D Mario game next time. I imagine at this point it'll be next console, but we'll see. We're still early in the Switch 2 generation, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so other thing I wanted to talk about, I did play a little bit more Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I talked a lot about Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I think 2 shows ago at this point, because last show I basically just talked about the Nintendo Direct in news. So 2 shows ago I talked a lot about Kirby and the Forgotten Land. At that point it was pretty new, the Switch 2 version anyway, not the full game, but the Switch 2 version was pretty new. And I've got to say, I've failed you. I still have not played any of the Switch 2 exclusive content for the game, so I still don't have anything too hot to say about it. But I do have a few more opinions on it. A few. Why did I say it like that? I have a few more opinions on it. I did finally beat the game. So last time I talked about how I was very close to beating the game, but I hadn't quite. I was like on the final level or something, and I have now since beat the game. I'm on September 10th, I beat it, and it took me about 10 hours total. And I am continuing the game. I do still plan to 100% the game, and so I'm not done with it, but I did write it down as the date I beat it. This is what I did with Bonanza, too. On my like backlog, not my backlog, my list of games that I've beaten. I'm doing this for everything that I 100%. Um, as before after I beat the game. So if it's like Mario 64, right? I'm gonna 100% it as I'm playing the game, right? I'm gonna finish all the collectibles before I beat the game. But with other games like Bonanza or Kirby, that doesn't make sense. And so you have to beat the game and then 100% it. And so I write the 100%ing thing after I've beaten the game. So it just depends on the game. But in this case, I'm going to write that I beat the game on September 10th. And then when I 100% the game, I'll write the date off to the side. I'll write, like I did with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I'll write it off on the side and say, this is when I 100%ed it. And then I'll put the time added on to the regular time that it took me to 100%. So, and I'll have both of those pieces of data stored here in this book. So that's kind of my strategy for that front. Now, Kirby, the final boss was good. It was good. I don't have like a ton to say about the end of the game because honestly, yeah, I was already very close to the end of the game last time. I was only like a couple of, I think I was like one real level and then the boss fight. I think that's all I had left. So yeah, the final boss fight was interesting. There was a little, I guess, twist, but it's a Kirby game, so I'm just gonna spoil it anyway. The final boss, like, he was good in the end, and you know he was just corrupted by an evil spirit or something. I don't know, some weird nonsense. But anyways, and so now there's a new world opened up, and this is what I was talking about last time. In the game, there's 6 main worlds, and then there's a 7th post-game world, and then in the Switch 2 version, there's 2 worlds worth of new levels. So total, there's 9 worlds in the Switch 2 version, 6 of them in the main game, 3 of them as like side stuff. And I am working on the world right now from the post game, which, by the way, I have not played it in like 2 weeks. So I have not played it since last episode came out, roughly. So I'm a little fuzzy, but if I remember correctly, I've done most of that world. So pretty soon I'll have finished that post-game world, then I will work a little bit on the new stuff from the Switch 2 version, so hopefully I'll have stuff to talk about with that next week, and also I will probably have worked a little bit on 100%ing the collectibles in the levels from the main game that I didn't collect as I was going through, so I don't think I'll have it 100%ed next time, because I'm going to be playing some other stuff as well, but I could see myself getting, you know, kind of close. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, Kirby, you know, it's a great game as well. I think, you know, Bonanza is definitely a better game. But Kirby and the Forgotten Land is definitely going to be pretty high up there on my list of games, especially if I do get around to 100%ing it, which I think I will. Sometime this month, I'm pretty confident that I will 100% it. So yeah, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is going to be pretty high up there. I could see it definitely being top 10. I don't know about top 5. We'll see. So it's a solid game though. I really love it. I think a lot of people, I think most people should try the Switch 2 version. Obviously, if you're a Kirby fan, or even if you're just like a platforming fan in general, if you're somebody who really wanted a 3D Mario game, play Bonanza, and then if you've played Bonanza, maybe try Kirby. Right? It's a good game. It's a solid game. It's a very different game to like Odyssey, right? But I think it's more similar to like 3D World or 3D Land or even Galaxy, like that slightly more linear, more platforming challenge based. Not that it's particularly challenging, obviously, but it's more like it almost feels like 2D levels transplanted into a 3D setting, which is exactly the way 3D World feels, and it's exactly the way that you would expect Kirby to feel, this being his first 3D game. So yeah, it's a great controlling game. It's a great looking game. It has good vibes. You know, a lot of great things about it. I love it. It's a great game. So I'm definitely going to keep going on that and work on 100%ing that. And like I said, I probably won't have it 100%ed next time. It'll probably still be 2 shows because I'm going to be playing some other stuff too. But I'm definitely excited to get there when I do. And I'll definitely have at least something else to say about it next episode. So we'll see what that ends up being. But that's kind of where I'm at. Alright, so I do still have a couple of games to talk about that I've played in the last little while. The next one on the list is Uncharted. So I've talked a little bit about playing Uncharted on the show before, because probably 2 years ago? Not 2 years ago. No, not 2 years ago. A little over a year ago, July 2024, I went on a trip we went pretty far away on like a day trip to go buy video games at a very large city. Um, and anyways, we went there and bought a bunch of video games. One of the games I bought was Uncharted on PS3. And I took it home, and I played it not right off, but I tried to play it. You know what? No, I didn't play it very early on, did I? I tried to play it early this year. Now that I think about it, or I think it was over Christmas break still, so it was like end of last year. Actually, I think I tried to play it, and I started Uncharted. And my opinion of the game was it was just broken. Like, in so many different ways, the game just felt broken. Like, I was falling through floors, I was glitching through walls, my camera was messed up. Like, so many things with the game were just, like, messed up. And the through line was interesting, the story was interesting. I thought the game was a little too hard. Like, there were just a lot of weird things. And mostly the game was broken. That was my biggest problem. So, a while back, I want to say back in this July, I think, I bought the Nathan Drake collection on PS4. It's the remakes of all three of the PS3 Uncharted games. Obviously, my idea was, oh, well, these versions will surely be a lot better as far as not being broken. And there are also better versions just, with mechanics and stuff and difficulty settings and a lot of different things like that. So, a lot of just, like, little quality of life things, right? So this will be great. I'll play the game this way, and then I won't have all the same problems. So, I bought the Nathan Drake collection. I haven't got around to trying it until just in the last couple of weeks. And turns out the game's still kind of broken. The game's still kind of broken, even after a remake. So, there's been a few situations. I won't say it's not nearly as bad as the PS3 version, but there's been a couple situations where I've glitched through walls. There was one situation in particular. I couldn't tell you really what part of the game this is in. It's a little hard to describe parts of this game. But you're trying to break into a large facility, and you have to go in this one section that's in a hallway, and it's like kind of underground. Like you have to go down some steps into like a basement, basically. And you're in a narrow hallway. At the very end of the hallway, there's a guy on a machine gun. Like, not like a machine gun. Like those things that are stationary. They almost look like anti-aircraft guns, but they're like on the ground. Well, they're all anti-aircraft are on the ground, but it's like you don't use them on aircraft. You use them like on people. But you know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, these like turrets basically on the ground. So there's a guy standing at the turret, and you're kind of below him, and so you have to like hide behind these little posts sticking out of the wall, and you have to get all the way up next to him. And then what I did, I'm not sure if this is the only way, was I threw a grenade above him, and I took him out that way, and it landed behind the turret and took him out. And so the idea was obviously, I would just kill him, and then I would figure out what to do. Well, it turns out throwing the grenade up there also happens to be what you're supposed to do to go to the next area, because you have to get higher up, and so you have to break down the platform that's above you so you can climb on it to then get into the next area. Well, because of the place I was standing in, the grenade fell. The grenade exploded. The floor fell, and it landed on top of me. And rather than the game like moving me out of the way or something, or not letting me stand there in the first place, I glitched through the floor into the pile of rubble, and I was stuck in the pile of rubble. So here I am, like, trying to figure out how to get unstuck from the rubble. I was jumping around, I was running, I was looking every which way, messing with the camera, trying whatever I could. And then I started taking out and putting away the gun over and over again, like aiming and then not aiming and aiming and not aiming. That works in a lot of shooters. And I was just trying to glitch through out of the rubble into the wall. And so I was facing away from I was facing towards the wall with the idea that it would force me backwards when I looked away from the scope of the gun. This is something that happens in a lot of video games. Well, for some reason, it forced me the other way, and I got glitched through the wall, and I landed in another room. I got moved to another room of this facility. And I was looking around, I was like, all right, well, did I just, like, do some big skip here, or, like, what just happened? This wasn't a room I had been in yet. So I'm walking around, and there's nothing here. Like, it's just a completely empty room. I can't figure out how to get out of it. There's nothing to do in the room. I was walking around for, like, a good 10 minutes or so. Finally, I reloaded a save. I went back, I did the same thing, did the grenade. This time I stood far enough back that I could get into the next room. Turns out, the room that I glitched into was the next room, And the problem was that I had glitched into it, and so I hadn't spawned the enemies in the room when I walked in, because I hadn't walked in normally. And just that whole process, I know this isn't like exclusive to these kinds of games. This stuff can happen in a lot of games, but it was just that incident combined with an incident earlier in the game where I was climbing a ledge and I got up on top of a ledge, and there was a situation where I was on some high ground and there were a bunch of enemies below me, and I had to try to find cover, but there wasn't a ton of cover, and so I was kind of out in the open, just trying to get out of their line of sight. And what would happen is, like, I would aim towards them, but then as soon as I stopped aiming, the camera would zip back out and go back to the ledge I was climbing before. And so I couldn't see my character when I was not, like, in the scope of the gun. So I had to, like, literally stay in the scope of the gun. I was, like, turning, like, super slowly while the enemies were shooting at me. They're just, like, so many little things like that. Camera issues, still some falling through the floor, still some glitching through the wall, weird things, just like I would try to hit the button to take cover and it wouldn't snap to the close cover. I'd be touching a wall and it would not snap to the wall. I would try to walk around a wall and instead I would walk through the wall, or I just couldn't walk around the wall. Just like so many weird issues with the game. And it's not nearly as bad as the PS3 version from what I played of that. And I'm only like 3 hours in, but like, yeah, it's really broken in a lot of different ways, and it's a little frustrating, to be honest, when a game's this broken. Especially in a remake, right? Like, they rushed it out the door the first time, it was broken, it was on the PS3, okay, cool. But they took time and remade the game, and it's still broken. Like, it's still bad. I don't know what they were doing. Yeah, and this just goes to show, this is how Nintendo got the reputation over the years, which some would argue they're now breaking, of having quality stuff, right? Are there glitches in Nintendo games? Yes, of course. Are there weird things that every now and then you get some slowdown, or maybe you glitch through a wall here and there? Maybe occasionally, but it doesn't tend to bother me. There's rarely too many issues. It's usually a very smooth experience. I can't think of any major glitches I encountered in Bonanza. There might have been one where, like, I think there was a weird thing where I, at one point, grabbed a chunk of terrain, and I picked it up, but it was invisible. And then when I threw it, it was visible again. So, like, one time I noticed some weird hiccup with the glitches. But generally, it was very well done, especially with all the voxel technology. They did a very good job. And this is true for basically every Nintendo game. Now, I know there's going to be that one guy, like, oh, what about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? I'm like, it's not a Nintendo game. Nintendo didn't make the game. Nintendo did not make the game. You can't blame them for what happened with Scarlet and Violet. Naughty Dog, however, is within PlayStation Studios, so that's a little different. And I think a lot of it, too, is that PlayStation Studios, especially back then, didn't make a whole lot of their own games. And so, Pokemon, while yes, it is sort of representative of Nintendo, Nintendo also makes their own games. And so, if the PlayStation partners are all screwing up, and only the Pokemon company is screwing up at Nintendo, only kind of at Nintendo, I think this is still a lot worse on the PlayStation companies. And I'll give PlayStation and even Xbox a lot of credit. In the last generation or two, they fixed things up a lot, right? In the last, 8 years maybe, they've done a lot to fix their games. They're far less broken now. But there's still some things here and there that are pretty broken, and there's still a lot of remnants of old PS3 games, even some of the earlier PS4 games. They're just broken. You just fall through floors, you glitch through walls, it's just, like, so many different weird things, and, like, it's all the time. It is, like, literally all the time, and it's frustrating, and it goes to show they don't spend time polishing stuff like Nintendo does, and they push their hardware too far. They push it too far so that the games no longer work properly. And it's really a shame, and it's part of the reason why I love Nintendo, right? I mean, it's just one more thing to add to the list of the whole, like, well, Nintendo has better quality stuff, right? Like, they put more time, they put more care into most of their things, or their examples, sure. But yes, just in general, PS3 games, Xbox 360 games, they're not the thing, because they're broken. They're all messed up, right? And it does kind of make me see into the eyes of some people today that are like, oh, retro video games, those just aren't as good, most of them. Well, yeah, of course, because you're not playing anything Nintendo. And as soon as you play a retro video game, that's like, the PS. I don't even think I would call it retro, but if you play an older video game from like the PS3 generation or the Xbox 360 generation that wasn't on the Wii, then yeah, of course the games aren't that good. They're all broken. You're falling through the floor every game. It's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. like I'll jump off my soapbox now, but you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of weird things, and I've got to give there's some credit here. Sucker Punch, right? I played Infamous 1. Infamous 1, I did not have nearly the amount of issues on the PS3. Infamous is a much better running game with a lot less issues. There's a few things here and there. It also looks a lot better. It's a bit less dark than a lot of these other games where they make them so obnoxiously dark that you can't see anything. It wasn't quite as bad. So I'll give Sucker Punch and Infamous some props. I still got to play the second game though. Maybe that one's worse. I don't know. But yes, Naughty Dog definitely are not the best at that. Even in The Last of Us, Part 1 on PS5, which is the second remake of a PS3 game, even in that game, I was having some glitches and issues. Even in that game. So, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, it just... They need to fix their stuff. And I will say they're doing better nowadays. They're doing better, but there's still some weird things. All right. I'll jump off my soapbox. That's all I have to say about Uncharted. I don't have a ton else to say. I'll probably not talk much about Uncharted until I beat it, because it's a very short game. It's mostly narrative-driven. There's not a ton to talk about. So probably next show, maybe two shows from now, when I do get around to beating it, I will talk about the mechanics, and then I'll talk about the story, and then it'll be a good 10 minutes or so, and we'll probably be done. That's probably all I ever need to really say about Uncharted. It doesn't really seem like, the kind of thing that I need to, like, go on and on and on about. Even though I just kind of did. But anyways, okay. So, on to the final thing that I have played, and another game that I have beat. Uncharted I have not beat, but another game that I have beat in the last... 2 episodes since I last talked about games that I beat. That game, of course, is a game that I've talked about a number of times on the show, oftentimes to say that I haven't played any more of it. That game is Yakuza 0. So Yakuza 0, that came out, this is, of course, the director's cut version of the game. I bought Yakuza 0 at the end of last year, like, right after Christmas. I think it was the 27th, maybe, or 28th. I bought it out of town on the PS4. And when the Switch 2 came out, they put out the director's cut. And at this point, I still hadn't played much of the game. I played like an hour of it on the PS4. They put out the director's cut, and I stopped what I was doing, and I went and bought the Switch 2 version in July, and I started playing it instead, and it's a lot better. The director's cut is a great version of Yakuza 0. I mean, I haven't played through the whole original, but it seems better than the original, at least at first glance. And now Yakuza 0 director's cut, if you didn't hear at the Tokyo Game Show, is in fact coming to other consoles now as well. It was a timed exclusive for the Switch 2, and that same thing is happening with these newer versions of Kiwami 1 and 2, and of course, Yakuza Kiwami 3 coming out next year. So that seems to be Sega's strategy here with the Yakuza games, is they're going to put them, hopefully all of them, but at least a good run of them out as timed exclusives with the remakes on Switch 2, and then later on they put them out on other consoles, which is great, because that means the Switch 2 gets more sales, they get more third-party support, and I get the game. Right? I get the game as early as possible, so it's great news, and I really would love to play all the Yakuza games, preferably all of them on the Switch 2. That's my plan, so we'll see. I don't know if they'll put them all out. There's a lot of Yakuza games to be put out, so if they put them all out, great. If they don't, okay, right? I mean, it is what it is. I would at least like the first, 6, right? 0 and the first 6 would be nice. After that, I hope they keep going, but if that's all we get, that's all we get, I guess. But I do think we're at least going to get, the first 6. Yeah, I think that's likely. So, everything through the Yakuza collection on PS4, so... Anyways, I think we're going to get all those games. It seems like we're not going to get them all together, though. I kind of figured they were going to do Kiwami and Kiwami 2, but then they were going to do 3, 4, 5, 6 all together, and they were just going to relaunch the Yakuza collection from the PS4. But instead, they're actually opting to do full-on remakes of those games, which is great, because I'm not an expert on Yakuza. I haven't played most of the games. I've only played Director's Cut. But I have heard that Yakuza 3, the original, has a lot of weird problems and stuff, mostly due to its age, and that it needs a remake really badly. And so, this getting a remake next year, I think in February that's coming out, that's definitely going to do wonders for the game, I would think. So, that's going to be really exciting. I'm really happy about that. Obviously, Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2 are the next ones in line to get remakes on the Switch 2, and those two are coming out on November 13th. So a little over a month from now. We still got a while to go, a few shows. But as soon as those come out, I will be buying them. I don't know if they're going to come out physically. I really hope so. But even if they don't, I'll probably still buy them anyway. Uh, so, yeah, I'm very excited to... you know what? It does look like they are going to come out. Or at least Kiwami 2 is going to come out. Because GameStop has it listed here as a physical. Let me just real quickly, I really want to know the answer to this. Sorry about this, guys. So, Yakuza Kiwami, yeah, it does look like they're going to come out both physically. It looks like they're going to be $35 a pop. That's not too bad. It's only $70 for the two of them. That's not bad. I know a lot of people are probably going to be mad about it, but I don't think that's a bad price at all, so... Okay, cool. So yeah, so Kiwami and Kiwami 2, both gonna get physical releases. Those are coming out in November. Hopefully I can find them at Walmart. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if Kiwami and Kiwami 2 got like a bundle on Switch 2. So they're $70. Maybe they put out the two of them for $60. I imagine it'll be a digital-only bundle if that does happen, so we'll see what happens. I'll probably buy the games separately physically unless they come out together physically, in which case I might. We'll see. Depends on what I find, because Walmart usually has pretty limited supply of these things, and I don't have a GameStop anymore, so... but yes, so Yakuza 0, I guess I can talk a little bit about the game. It's another one that I'm probably going to make a whole video on at some point, and I also don't really want to spoil, so I'll just talk more on the mechanic side of things. I've already talked a lot about Yakuza in the past, Yakuza 0, but basically you follow the main character of the entire Yakuza series, Kiryu, and also a recurring character in some of the other games, Majima, and you play as those two, and there's 17 chapters in the game. Every group of chapters, except for the final chapter, 17, you play in groups of 2. So you'll play like 2 chapters with Kiryu, and then 2 with Majima, and so on, through chapter 16, and then in chapter 17, they combine. You play as a little bit with both. So that's the general way things go in Yakuza 0, and I would say both characters were very interesting. Both stories were very compelling. I enjoyed playing as both characters. Both, I think, had good fighting styles. That is a really cool thing in Yakuza 0. I don't know if this is the case with all the games. I'm not an expert on Yakuza, like I said. But both characters have, like, a few different options for combat. So you can pick from, like, a few different combat styles. And you can swap on the fly. You can be, like, mid-battle and choose and switch combat styles. For me, I actually stuck for Majima with the first combat style you unlock with him. I stuck with that style. I think it's called Thug. I stuck with that through the whole game. I liked that you could pick up items and use them. You could pick up like traffic cones and stop signs and stuff, and use them as weapons. I also liked that you hit pretty hard, but you were still fairly agile. And then with Kiryu, I did not stick with his opening one. I stuck with his second fighting style. So there's one later that allows you to hit really heavy with Kiryu and also pick up items. I chose against that one because it's a lot like Majima's battle style, except Kiryu is a lot slower with that battle style, and I don't like being slow. I like to kind of get out of the way and stuff. So yeah, Kiryu's first battle style is pretty good, but I opted for his second one, which is more about evasion and agility, and you don't really hit very hard, to be fair, which is sometimes a problem, but you can usually have a lot of opportunity to dodge and to evade, and it's a bit easier to do so for the most part. So that's what I went with for Kiryu, and I pretty much stuck with those combat styles the whole game. I didn't really experiment much. When I did, I really didn't love the other combat styles, so it's not one of those things where you're going to want to have different ones for different situations. You're pretty much going to find what you want to stick with, and you're going to stick with it. And that's cool, right? I mean, it means that there's going to be people that are going to have different ideas of how to play these games, and they're going to pick other combat styles, and that's great, right? It's awesome that there's a little bit of player choice there as to where you take these characters. And if you want to change things up for different battles, you can, I guess. It just Doesn't seem like the most advantageous thing to do, so I don't know. But that's Yakuza. Like I said, the story was compelling. It was a little bit weird, I think, at the end, how things wrapped up. I thought the way that they brought the two stories together was a little strange, and I think they could have done it a little bit sooner. Like, I'm hearing, like, chapter 13, 14, I'm like, alright, surely Kiryu and Majima are gonna meet. But Kiryu and Majima never met until the post-credit scene. They did not meet in the main game. Like, they knew about each other, not until the last chapter. Majima knew about Kiryu a little bit earlier, but Kiryu didn't know about Majima until the very last chapter of the game, which is kind of crazy. And I think they tease quite a bit towards the end of the game in both situations that one might meet the other, and they just never do. And I kept expecting that to come up, and I figured that the final fight was going to be like a team-up thing, and it really wasn't. You had two completely different objectives, which were both related, but you had different objectives that were both given by a character that was in both stories. So there was a connection, and you were kind of fighting for the same cause, but you weren't really fighting together. So that's a little strange. It worked out in a really strange way. But yeah, I loved the story. I loved the Yakuza is a game that feels like it both doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also has serious themes and a serious story. You know, like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also is serious, right? So you can appreciate the depth of the story, but it also has humor, and it has pomp, and it has what else? Video gaminess. What am I trying? What's the word I'm trying to think of? Zaniness. It has zaniness. It's a very zany game. It's very strange. There's a lot of weird Japanese culture stuff in there. Sometimes it's a little off-putting at times, but you know, generally speaking, you can avoid a lot of weird stuff. there's a lot of weird stuff to avoid in that game. It definitely earned its label of being a mature game. So yeah, but you know, but if you can avoid all that kind of stuff, it's a great game. It's zany. It's funny. It has good humor. It's entertaining. Has a good story. You know, and I'm very excited to play the entire series. I loved the combat as well. The combat was a little hard, to be honest. I did not find it particularly easy on the boss fights, especially there at the end. There were, like, some of the final boss fights, most of the final boss fights, actually, except for the final two, interestingly enough. Most of the later boss fights in the game, I did actually have to switch to easy mode. Basically, once you lose twice on a boss fight, it asks you if you want to switch to easy mode temporarily, and if it ever asks me that, I say yes, because it doesn't really bother me. Like, I don't. This isn't a game that I need to be challenging. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where I don't feel like I get, like, reward for having beat a really difficult boss, and that's not a bad thing. It's just not one of those things where I'm like, "Ooh, wow, I finally made my way through a hard boss." It's more of just oh, okay, cool. It's about the spectacle. It's about the story, and you know, to a lesser degree, it's also about just having fun with the controls and how things feel. I don't want to be too stressed out. I don't want to be like, you know... Now, to be fair, it is nice to be focused and locked in, and to be fair, even on easy mode, right? Like, I do have to kind of focus. Now, to be fair, I'm not really in any fear of losing with the easy mode, but I do still try to focus in. And honestly, when I switch to easy mode, things do get very easy, because I'm still focused, right? It's just now it's easier, and so oftentimes with those boss fights, I'll, like, kill them without taking any damage once I switch to easy mode. But then when I'm on hard mode, I'm dying. So, you know, it's hard to kind of make that judgment as to what you should do. If you play this whole game through on easy mode, I do not judge you at all. If you play the whole game on hard mode and you judge me for playing it on easy mode, I also understand, right? I can totally understand both sides of the coin here. But yeah, that's just personally what I chose to do, and I love the combat system, but also in the newer games, I've heard in the last couple, they've switched to like a turn-based RPG combat system, and that also seems interesting. So I'm definitely curious to get to those later games too, and I'm curious to play all of the older games. So I just want to play the whole series, really, including the spin-offs, kind of, or the like offshoots and stuff. So yeah, I definitely want to play the whole series. I'm definitely curious too, and I'm sure I probably will at some point. Hopefully they put them all out on Switch too, and I can do it there. But if not, I guess I'll just have to play them elsewhere at some point. So, but I'm gonna guess that they're at least gonna put out quite a few more on the Switch too. Like I would imagine we'd at least get another 4 or 5 games unannounced. So that's the plan. We at least know about Yakuza Kiwami 1, 2, and 3. And I don't really know. I'm actually going to check right now because I'm kind of curious. So Yakuza 0. Let me just actually check my book here. I beat Yakuza 0 recently, October 5th, so yesterday when I'm recording this, in about 31 hours, 31 and a half hours, actually. And on how long to beat, it also says 31 and a half hours. Oh, you know what, actually, Director's Cut says 28 and a half, so I guess actually Director's Cut should have been a little faster. So I actually beat the game a little bit slower than I should have, but not much. It wasn't significant. I did do a lot of extra side quests and stuff, to be fair. I got nowhere near 100%ing, but I did do quite a few extra side quests. And now I'm curious, Yakuza Kiwami, is this like a similarly long game? No, it's only 18 hours, and Kiwami is only 18 and a half. So basically, Kiwami and Kiwami 2 together aren't that much longer than Yakuza 0. So when these games come out on the Switch 2, I'm definitely at least will be able to beat Kiwami 1 for the end of year ranking. I might honestly be able to beat both Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2 for the end of year ranking. That would be nice if I could, because those are definitely all games that would rank pretty highly, I'm assuming. Yakuza 0 is probably going to be my top 10, like as a lock. So as far as how far it gets up on there, I don't know. But I think it's at least going to be a lock for the top 10 this year, so we'll see what happens. Unless, of course, Kiwami and Kiwami 2 blow it out of the water, then maybe they'll be up there and 0 can fall down a little bit. But either way, it's a very solid game. I was very happy to have played it, and I don't have a ton more to say about it. I'm thinking I'm going to make a whole video at some point, or maybe I'll talk about the story of all 3 games in a special video, maybe like towards the end of the year after I beat Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2. I'll talk about the story amongst all 3 games. That would be kind of an interesting little thing to do. But then I could always just keep pushing it off a couple months and play the next one, so we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But at some point I'm going to talk about the story, but I don't think here and now is the place for that, because at this point we've already talked like very long about games I've been playing and stuff, and so I'd like to get into the news segment. So we're going to take a quick musical break, and we're going to come back and we're going to do just that. We're going to talk about some video game news. There's actually some pretty significant news this week as well, so this is going to be a bit of a longer and more full episode, I think, than most, because there's been a lot going on in this last couple of weeks, especially since last week I was busy with the Direct, and so there was some stuff I missed. So there's a lot to talk about this show, so let's get into it. Alright, so welcome back everyone. Let's talk about some news from the last week. A lot of the news this week is going to be focused on Microsoft again. I know I like to complain about Xbox, but that's just kind of how the way things go. But the Xbox, so we've talked a bit, there's been a few leaks at this point about the potential of not having a new Xbox console come 2027. There's been a lot of people talking for a while now that there's a possibility, including that one person who left the company and claimed that there might not be another Xbox, that they might be done making first-party hardware. Of course, the headset they did as a partnership with Oculus and the Asus ROG Xbox Ally X are, of course, both potential evidence of that, right? Because they're licensing out companies to make hardware for them rather than making the hardware themselves. So there's a lot of evidence that this could in fact be happening. And so apparently there's been another leak, this time posted on NeoGAF from Sneakers SO. So Sneakers SO is another leaker in the industries. He's been fairly credible for the most part. Says This was in a reference to the 50% price hike for Game Pass, which we'll talk about in a moment. The Call of Duty sales, or the poor Call of Duty sales costing Microsoft $300 million. This is according to The Gamer. And retailers like Costco pulling consoles from store shelves. Sneakers is talking about how there might not be a new Xbox. It says the ramifications of the COD Game Pass gambit not working out were just starting to get properly measured. But the thing that really stuck out to me was that suddenly, really concrete plans for the actual Xbox hardware went from being definitive to up in the air, which was really startling given that this thing was meant to be out relatively soon. The future of Xbox is software publishing with a significant honed-in focus on profitable IPs. So this is just another instance, or another idea that there might, in fact, not be a new Xbox. And of course, this isn't hardcore evidence. This is a leak. This is a rumor. But of course, right, everyone's always going to be talking about it. And it definitely is possible, right? It definitely is possible that there's not a new Xbox. However, Microsoft did come in. This was actually a few days after. I think this was just today. Microsoft came in and they had a little response. They said, "We're actively investing in our future first-party consoles and devices designed, engineered, and built by Xbox. The community can revisit our agreement announcement with AMD." And they had a little announcement talking about new chips and blah, 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 blah. Who cares, right? So basically, the current theory is that potentially the new Xbox will in fact be a piece of hardware, but it'll be more of like a lifestyle thing with a lot of weird, like, computery things and a lot of weird, like, AI voice assistant stuff. And that Xbox is going to go further down the rabbit hole of like the home, like the Xbox One stuff, right, where they had a lot of stuff other than video games. And so there may be an Xbox, there may not be an Xbox, but as it currently stands, it seems like there is still a bit of debate on whether or not there's actually going to be a new Xbox. Personally, I mean, I think Xbox is failing. Honestly, I think they're failing really badly. And if they were going to pull out, I think now would be a good time to do it, to be honest. Like, it wouldn't. I would not be bewildered if there was never another Xbox console. It would not shock me. But it also wouldn't shock me if there was more. So, we'll see. We'll see. I, for one, am probably not going to buy. Actually, I'm going to say 100%. I'm not going to buy the next Xbox when it's new. I'm not doing it. Like, that's stupid. I'm tired of Xbox hardware being garbage. I'm tired of them not having any games exclusive. I'm tired of them putting out all their exclusives on every other console. I'm not even tired of that. I'm happy because I hate the Xbox hardware, so I'm happy to play these games elsewhere. But it's just one more reason to never want to buy an Xbox. Alright, so there are some people speculating that Nintendo might be suing Zora AI. So, supposedly, of course, everybody's always speculating that Nintendo's suing everybody, because that's apparently all Nintendo does, is sue people, and occasionally make video games. So the people were saying that they might be suing Zora because there were some videos put out from that AI. I don't know all the details here. But apparently they had some highly realistic renders of Pokemon and Mario characters. And so the idea was, Nintendo's going to sue because blah, 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 generative AI. Nintendo had a little statement. It says, contrary to the recent discussions on the internet, Nintendo has not had any contact with the Japanese government about generative AI. Whether generative AI is involved or not, we will continue to take necessary actions against infringement of our intellectual property rights. So yeah, they're not suing generative AI as a idea. Of course, it's not to say that they might not ever possibly sue a generative AI company, right? So that's the thing. A lot of people are taking stuff at face value. Nintendo. There were some rumors. Everybody took them to be true because places like IGN published that they were, and they're not. No, in fact, Nintendo is not suing generative AI, but they are protecting their IPs. That makes sense. I don't understand why people find it so crazy that they would, not that they would protect their IPs. Whatever. That's all I have to say on that one. Here I am, Nintendo Defender, back at it again. But I want to get through these articles, so let's speed things up. All right, Xbox consoles, they're getting clearanced everywhere. Costco, all over the place. Sam's Club's also doing it. A lot of places. Crazy clearance prices on Xbox. They're selling them out. They're taking them off the shelves. Yeah, it definitely says a lot about how Xbox is struggling, about how they're just not selling all that well. Yeah, just a lot of weird things. All right. Somebody 100%ed Hollow Knight Silk Song with an aerophone, which, if you don't know, is basically an electronic saxophone. So they played notes on the aerophone, and they controlled the game of Hollow Knight Silk Song. And with that, they managed to 100% the entire game, beat the game, do all the 100%ing stuff, and yeah, this is another crazy YouTube challenge. I think this was actually done on Twitch originally. Somebody beat Hollow Knight Silk Song with a saxophone. As a guy who has not beat the game, I don't, or has not played the game, I do not wish to go watch this video because I want to actually play the game for myself. But at some point, I will definitely be watching this challenge because that sounds ridiculous, and it's very impressive, and very strange. Anyways, okay, Xbox, we're back to them. They might be testing a free Xbox cloud gaming supported by ads with monthly play limits, according to IGN. So, supposedly, I've heard this from a few different sources now, a few different articles and stuff that I've read. Supposedly, there's a few different leaks all about this potential cloud gaming Xbox Game Pass tier, like a free tier, with ads, which is going to be kind of weird. You'll be in the middle of playing, like, friggin' Call of Duty, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's an ad. Temu ad or something. And you have monthly play limits. So I don't know what this is going to be. Yeah, if it's going to be totally free, then I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out, right? Like, but maybe I'll play it, but it just seems like a lot of people have mixed opinions on this. The idea of games going totally free like this with ads and stuff, it does not seem ideal. But we'll see. Halo's on Netflix. Everybody's talking about it. I believe it's also off Paramount Plus now, and it's just on Netflix, which is kind of weird. So it's kind of jumped ship completely. Yeah, it's kind of weird. All right, GameStop got a price hike. No, not GameStop. What am I talking about? Xbox got a price hike. I know we're all shocked. This time for Game Pass. So yes, Xbox Game Pass prices have once again gone up. This time at $30 a month, rather than $20 a month. This is coming after them putting a bunch of Ubisoft games on the service. We'll talk more about that later. However, GameStop, they're doing a ballsy move. They're supposedly keeping the price of GameStop Game Pass Ultimate at their locations on the physical cards and stuff at $20. They are not increasing the prices. I don't know why exactly they're doing this, but it definitely seems like they're kind of trying to... I guess, to be fair, I do kind of actually know what they're doing. I believe they probably can't really raise the prices of them because they got them, and at that point it was still sold for $20. I think this is more of a stunt on their front. They're like, hey, well, GameStop or Game Pass is going up to $30. Come buy our cards. They're $20 because they want to get those things gone as soon as possible instead of selling them for $30. So I'm assuming they're at some point going to switch over. But I did find that kind of interesting. A lot of people were talking about that. Lego Game Boy, that came out. There were some rumors about that a while ago. I don't know if I talked about that on the show or not. I probably didn't really interest me a ton. But there's a Lego Game Boy. It's a Lego set. Makes a Game Boy. There was somebody, Natalie the Nerd, YouTube video. They made the Game Boy, the Lego Game Boy playable with buttons. And they modded games onto it, which is pretty cool. I believe you could play with the original cartridge and stuff. That's pretty cool. Alright, what else do we have to say here? Mass and subbing at Game Pass. I kind of did a lot of redundant articles here. Alright, here's the new games coming to Game Pass. I'm not going to read them all off. It's a bunch of Assassin's Creed stuff, a bunch of Far Cry's, Primals, Skull and Bones, some Rabbids games, Tom Clancy games, Zombie, Diablo, Fallout, a lot of weird stuff like this. Quake, Warcraft, Wolfenstein. A lot of these things are coming over to Game Pass. Most of them from the old Ubisoft Connect service. And so, yeah, they're adding a bunch of Ubisoft stuff on there. This, of course, was, I think, the main reason as to why they increased the price. And so really, I think what this was is they got a few new games. They decided to drop them all together. They would have probably normally put this out over a couple of years, but instead they decided, hey, if we put them all out together, we can make it out as if we've just significantly increased the value of the service, and we can increase the price of the service. But like I said, they would probably have just normally put this out at over a few months, and instead they're opting to do it all together so they can increase the price. That's my take on this. I don't know, but that's definitely what it seems like. Alright, Square Enix is worried about the Xbox version of the third part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Supposedly, the Xbox Series X is struggling with a lack of memory to put it on the Xbox. So, I don't know, we've had a few situations this generation with games having trouble getting to Xbox, and that definitely could further hurt the idea of games coming to Xbox. Maybe with them having worse sales and with them being harder to port, it's possible that at some point we stop seeing games come to Xbox, some big third-party games. So, it's definitely bad news when something like that happens, especially when you have something like Final Fantasy, which is already not guaranteed to come to the Xbox. This just further cements that. Supposedly, the Oblivion Remastered dev, which was the Abstraction, I believe. Abstraction was the studio that made the Oblivion Remaster. Supposedly, they're now working on a Halo remaster, the original Halo. Which is cool. The game already kind of got remastered in the Master Chief Collection, but that's pretty cool. I hope that if this game does come out, it comes out cross-platform. That would be kind of cool. Alright, what else do we have to talk about? IGN put out this handy release schedule for both 2025 and 2026. I guess I can... is it worth... I don't know. Honestly, it might not even be worth going through all this stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go through all this stuff, but there's a lot of games coming out. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to go through all this stuff. So, I might. Let's see. Is there anything big to talk about for next year? I don't know. We'll talk about next year. Next year. I just don't want to have to be talking about too much of this stuff for too long. Rock Band 4. It's getting delisted. A lot of games in recent years have been delisted when they get to be a little older, and Rock Band 4 is another instance of those that are licensed, right? So they have these games, particularly you see it with the Forza games and with Rock Band, Guitar Hero, Just Dance, those kind of games. Sometimes the licenses and the songs run out and they have to delist the games. Of course, you can still play them physically, although some people seem to forget that that's even an option, but yeah, you can still play them physically, you just cannot play them digitally anymore, which is, I guess, kind of a shame if you're into that kind of stuff. And honestly, it's a shame even if you're not, because it's just not ideal, it's a little sad when something like that happens, Alright, this is probably one of the bigger pieces of news from the last few weeks. EA is being acquired for $55 billion, which I believe is the second largest acquisition in video games, in video game history, only behind the Activision Blizzard buyout, which I think was like 80-some billion dollars. So EA is getting bought for $55 billion by a Saudi Arabian company, the PIF, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, and some partners. They're supposedly absorbing 100% of the publisher, and they're going private with it. I don't know, they might go public once again, but that's a little strange. Yeah, Saudi Arabia, not the country as an entity, but a lot of companies from Saudi Arabia have been buying up a lot of video game companies. They even have pretty large parts of Nintendo at this point. And so yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's. I mean, I would say it's probably overall pretty bad that Saudi Arabian companies are buying up a lot of video games. But I don't know. It's just another one of those things. This stuff's of course going to happen. You have Tencent being huge, and China. You have Saudi Arabian companies too. It's always this kind of thing's always going to happen. But yeah, it's definitely big news. Well, I think that's probably going to be enough news for today, and of course also, I talked a lot about the stuff I've played and the stuff I've bought and stuff, so I think that's probably going to do it for today's episode. Thanks everyone for tuning in. The next episode will be on the 21st, if all goes according to plan, and that'll be the last episode, put out during the marching band season, because marching band's all done on the 26th, I think. So we're almost done with marching band, and as soon as marching band's done, not that I'm wishing for Marching Men to be done. It is fun, but it's also time consuming. As soon as that's done, there will be more videos. There will be podcast episodes. I'm not going to promise they'll be weekly again. Here, I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. The plan for podcast episodes come like November or so is that still expect them every 2 weeks, right? It's always going to be 2 weeks is going to be the schedule. Well, maybe not always, but at least for a few weeks into November, the schedule is going to be every 2 weeks. But a podcast episode may come out on the off week. And if by chance it does, then expect the next episode 2 weeks after that episode. So, for example, if November 1st there was an episode, right? Expect the next episode on the 15th, right? But if instead it comes on the 8th, don't now expect the episode on the 15th. Expect it on the 23rd. 23rd? I can't do math right now. 22nd, sorry. So I don't know. I think you get what I'm saying. So that's going to be how things are going to work here pretty soon. But next episode will be 2 weeks for sure. And after that, I don't yet know. I'm going to guess probably 2 weeks for the second for episode 31 as well. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Nothing's really set in stone. I am kind of planning on going back to the YT Gininja channel here as well soon. So I've got some plans. So stay tuned. I think that's probably going to do it for me. I'm not going to plug Blue Sky or anything anymore. I've pretty much gotten off of there, so I'm really pretty much just on YouTube at this point. And, I do kind of want to use something else, but I don't know. I just don't like most of the other social media platforms, all for different reasons. So you can join the Discord server, though. The community Discord server is a great place to have some chats. We have a Minecraft server if you like Minecraft. And that's run through there. We have, there's lots of different text channels to talk about different stuff. You can, if you're a collector, you can share pickups. There's a lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff in the Discord. Give me suggestions. You can send any questions to the show in the Discord. You can also, of course, send questions the old-fashioned way, which is to email them at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is notjustnintendo@gmail.com. And of course, if you're on YouTube or on Spotify, you can always just comment on the show as well. I definitely check YouTube and Spotify comments. I don't know if there's comments on anywhere else. I don't know, but those are the two I check. So if you're not in either of those two places, I do believe the podcast is on a few other places. So if you're on like Amazon or something, then you're gonna have to either email or Discord. But if you're on YouTube or Spotify, you can just comment. So that works as well. Yeah, next couple weeks, I definitely am going to be going back to both Uncharted and Kirby. That's kind of my plan, and I might be working on some videos and stuff as well. So there's a lot going on. Maybe I'll get back to Final Fantasy III at some point here soon as well. And I definitely need to get around to Metroid Prime Remastered, because I would like to play that before Metroid Prime 4. So there's a lot of stuff still that I've got on my agenda. And of course, I mean, that's all disregarding school and all that kind of, all that jazz. So, alright, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you all in 2 weeks, or if I get a video out before then, which I hope to, but we'll see what happens. And that's going to be it for me. Thanks, everyone, and goodbye. See you in 2 weeks for episode 30.